Thanks for tuning in to another show in the Next Reel family of film podcasts.
Want to skip those ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it.
Out in the hills, past where the asphalt gives up and the trees start looking like they remember things, you'll find villages where people still believe. Believe in gods who aren't quite benevolent, spirits who definitely hold a grudge, and ancestors who, frankly, are just a little too involved. These are places where the dead don't rest quietly, and the living mostly just try not to offend them. Step wrong, say the wrong name, burn the wrong incense, and suddenly, you're starring in a horror movie with very specific cultural notes and zero exit strategy. Tonight, we're talking about 3 films that drag us deep into that liminal space between faith and fear, where horror isn't just about jump scares, it's about what happens when your grandma's bedtime stories turn out to be documentaries.
Welcome to Sitting in the Dark, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and I am here with 2 of my normal colleagues in crime, Tommy Metz III and Kynan Dias. Hello.
I wouldn't call us normal.
Sorry to offend you. Heard. And our guest educator tonight, who brings all of us 3 movies that are new to each of us. It's Andy Nelson. Andy, welcome to Sitting in the Dark again.
Oh, thank you. I'm thrilled to be back. Thrilled to be back and to be talking about these movies. It should be a lot of fun.
Would you just set us up with how the hell you started watching these movies in the first place?
Where did you even find them? Well, yeah. So, I'm glad that, this is going to be exciting because, I'm walking into this situation where all 3 films are relatively new to, or are completely new to all 3 of you. Mm-hmm. And I'd heard about The Wailing. It had been on a number of different lists of like best horror movies or whatever year it came out. And so that was one that I had checked out a while ago. And actually, if you listen back to a Saturday Matinee, there was an episode where Kyle actually it was me and Mandy put together a 24-hour film marathon. And that was one that I included, like starting at midnight, because it's kind of a crazy, freaky movie to watch at midnight.
Okay.
And then Impetigore, I had also seen on another horror list just a couple years ago. And so, I've got somebody that I chat with regularly who is in Indonesia. And so I wanted to see what a horror movie from there looked like. And so I thought that was a thrilling one. And then The Medium was one that actually I hadn't seen before. And I came to it specifically as I was trying to put together this list. I'd heard about it and I thought it would make for an interesting fit to all of this. But, in the scope of this show, I kind of did what Tommy likes to do. And I was like, I'd like to posit my thesis for you all. And so here's what I wrote. Let me put this at you. In South Asia, belief is deeply woven into the fabric of daily life, shaped by rich spiritual traditions, cultural heritage, and collective memory. These films, The Wailing, Impetigore, and The Medium, show that belief is not just a tool for understanding the world, but a doorway to chaos and horror. In each story, belief becomes a bridge between the human and the supernatural, revealing how South Asian perspectives on spirituality and community can amplify both the terror and the meaning of these tales. So that's kind of what I was picturing as I started kind of coming up with what I would say is my thesis for these particular things. But
I love it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting, horror can tap into these deep fears, but when you look at spiritual horror, I think it's interesting how different belief systems can shape that reality. And so, I thought that would be an interesting exploration for this show.
Right. When I talk to my students at UNLV Film a lot, I have to sort of remind them how key, even if you're not a believer, Christian thought is in the way that we approach all stories. And, like the hero who sacrifices of themselves and is almost killed and reborn and becomes stronger. That's a very Christian idea. But then even more so, like when we're dealing with horror and the idea of time and what the soul is and what should happen to the soul and what doesn't happen to the soul, like that's why we have our particular types of ghost stories, right? So we just don't see it, obviously. And then you're exposing us to these, Andy, and like, whoa, I've never thought about horror in these ways because this isn't the way that I've been raised. This isn't the way that I see the world or time or what it is to be a person.
It sounds like I'm making a horrible pun, but I'm honestly not. One of the things that really works about these movies is just how thoroughly foreign they feel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything from the way that people are living to the towns, to the areas, to their daily rituals, to what they're eating, when they just have to rush out before going to a crime scene. It really, in a great way, sort of destabilized me, at least, and made me sort of really try to see the world in a different way, which is very exciting.
I had a hard time imagining what it would be like if my belief system included I had to inherit a ghost or spirit to live inside me. I just,
Right.
I can't, that is, to your point, like that is so foreign to me. If there were potentially malevolent spirits living in everything,
right?
My anxiety's already rough.
Right?
Yeah.
We're used to being, oh, the house is haunted or something like that. But like that we are inhabited by spirits, and that is a positive or negative that we're not even, we can't even begin to question, and we won't know until the next life whether that was a positive experience or a negative experience. And then to situate that within horror is quite mind blowing.
Yeah, and each of them explore it in such different ways, which I think is so fascinating about all three of these films. We have The Wailing, which is from South Korea, which deals with kind of folklore and religion colliding with kind of this modernity, and trying to understand some of these things from the policeman's perspective, this dad's perspective. You have Impetigore, which is from Indonesia, and this really looks at like these generational curses that also then tie into these strange traditions. And then The Medium, which is from Thailand, which you really are looking at these shamanic rituals and spiritual inheritance, as you were talking about, Pete, how there's these deities, and they kind of are chosen, like a person is chosen to inhabit them, right? It's such an interesting way to kind of look at different cultures. And I mean, you were talking about, like, I think Kynan, you were mentioning it's interesting to kind of come at these. No, Tommy, you were saying how they feel foreign, but also it's interesting because most of these also are like rural, right? So there's an interesting exploration of not just like the big city in a different country, but it's like we're in a different country and also rural, which also ties into how we're experiencing Impetigore, because this girl has become like a city girl and ends up going back to this very small rural village because of this potential property that she could inherit. And I think that's such an interesting way to kind of look at it, that in that perspective as well.
To that end, I think one of the signifier lines that ties some of all three of the movies together came from Impetigore, and it's what someone has asked: why do the villagers believe their words? Why do the villagers believe the words they're given? They say, who else do we have to look up to here?
Yeah.
I mean, belief is hard baked in because there's also doesn't seem to be a lot of modern things. And so there's no WebMD, there's no legal Zoom for inheritance shaman. And so, inheritance demons. So, I mean, just having to hold on to that and throw so much, especially in The Medium, it seems like throwing so much at the wall with rituals, with spiritualism. The beginning of that movie I thought was breathtaking, showing all of the parts of different rituals taking place throughout everyday life. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Before we really get into each of the films, I just had a few questions I wanted to talk to you all about. And the first one really just, I mean, kind of bigger picture ones, but how do you feel as you look at these that this cultural context that none of us have really kind of experienced with these different South Asia countries really kind of enrich and enhance the stories?
To what Tommy was saying, with them being, I'm sorry, that was Andy. What Andy was saying about them being rural, I think is really key. Yeah, exactly. I saw him nodding along. Yeah, I think that's really key. So when we do, see a movie in like the Korean context, right? Seoul is the city of the future. I mean, this is
Mm.
the future, right? So to go from Seoul into the rural parts of the south, and then be being plopped in there in this battle between modern religions of Christianity and it's weird to say these are modern, right? But Christianity and Buddhism versus these folk religions that are even older, and being asked to make sense of it is really disorienting, right? So we could see a Park Chan Wook movie or a Bong Joon Ho movie, right? Like, okay, I get Korea a little bit, right? But then we're put in with these modern characters as they go far away from the city, and like in Impetigore, going from Jakarta, which is like a city of 30 million people or something, and then to go to a place where there's no cell service even,
Mm.
and then on
Right.
top of that, being asked to like situate yourself between like whose side are you on, essentially, between modern, again, this is weird to say, but modern Islam and modern Hinduism versus these folk religions.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though, that the beginning of The Wailing, just because that was the first one that I happened to watch,
Hmm.
that it starts with a biblical quote
Right.
from
Mhm.
Luke talking about Christ after he was resurrected. It's almost like a way of going, okay, this is going to get weird, but you're weird too, Western world. Like, you got people living in caves and going to hell for 3 days. Like, it's
Mhm.
all like, just because yours is more recognized doesn't
Right.
mean that it's less haunted.
Right.
That
Just
it's
because
less
it's
weird.
global. Yeah, it's global as opposed to specific, to these
Right.
areas doesn't mean that it's less foreign or
Right.
Right. And that kind of leads to my next question, which and Kynan, I think this will be perfect for you to take, because we've the idea of framing these with that Eastern view, and you've already kind of brought up the Western view, but
Mhm.
specifically the thing that I really have been thinking about as I was kind of preparing for this conversation is The Exorcist, because that
Mhm.
is a very Western film. It
Right.
deals with possession, it deals with rituals, it deals with, essentially trying to cure somebody of whatever this thing is. But it's something that, quote, we can understand more because, again, it's Western. How do you feel like when you see the framing that we've watched in these three films versus that? Like, does just the fact that it's I mean, they're essentially kind of the same sorts of stories, but is it just because it's
Mhm.
different it becomes scarier?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I did the Exorcist Minute, where we looked at minute by minute through the Exorcist with my co-host Lester Ryan Clark, and he pointed out some things that are problematic about the way that the Exorcist works. About the Exorcist basically takes sides in the new religion of Christianity over the old religion of the Sumerian religion, and in America he's like, okay, it's Pazuzu, he's just this demon guy, right? And so he's with the devil, right? So, but if you're actually looking at it, Pazuzu is like a real god, and this really pisses Lester off so much, and you can see like we have hours and hours of Lester going on this, right, about how you shouldn't be mixing these things, and it feels unclean to him. But it also makes a perhaps a colonialist point about the old religions of Sumeria and where Pazuzu comes from being just inferior to Yahweh, to God, right, to the Christian God or the Jewish God, right? Um, but so I'm just thinking about that here. I wonder about what he would think about these movies, because like The Wailing and Impetigore specifically, they're trying to thread those all together, right? These people are experiencing the possession story, and they don't know where to turn to, right? Eventually, in The Exorcist, Chris McNeil, who has no religion whatsoever, decides that Catholicism is correct, right? Because it has the receipts. It's like, here we go, we did this, right? And at the end of these movies, I don't know if any of them really settle on like, well, this is correct, or this was the right thing. That this folk religion was the correct answer. Because I don't think any of them really wrap it up in a bow and be like, oh, Catholic priest, I'm so glad you're here. What would we do without you?
Well, Miami Vice Shaman got pretty close.
To that end, it also gets even more messy in that both The Wailing and The Medium have these giant set pieces of these rituals happening and being interrupted.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't even get to see things all the way through. In both of them, that was one of my favorite parts. The Wailing, I did have trouble getting used to the acting, that level. I mean, our audience surrogate is kind of a goofball. Like he's an
Yeah,
oaf that's always kind of falling over. That's a little rough for
We'll
me.
definitely talk about that.
Okay. But the fact that he interrupts this huge set piece ritual and is like, no, we're going to the hospital. And it's very clearly a bad idea. He says, we're going Western with it. And you're like, no, don't. And that is the exact opposite of what I usually feel in movies like that.
Right.
Yeah, which is such a strange surprise. Well, since we're already talking about it, let's really kind of kick off this conversation. In South Korea with The Wailing, where ancient demons and small town gossip make for a terrifying combination. So The Wailing, this is such an interesting film. Oh, I have synopses for each. So I'm going to do a little synopsis just so people listening can get a sense of it. In a remote South Korean village, a mysterious illness spreads, leading to violent murders and paranoia. Suspicion falls on a reclusive Japanese man, but the truth is far more complex. Jong-gu, a hapless cop, tries to save his daughter while navigating a web of shamanism, Christianity, and folklore. The Wailing explores how fear and belief blur the lines between good and evil in South Korea's spiritual landscape. And I forgot, on this show, we need to first do our airing of grievances. So,
Andy, I love that you remembered that. Yes.
You almost forgot, yes. Tommy, you were
now
already
we can start
mentioning...
recording. The Wailing was, I am really glad I watched all three of these. The Wailing was easily the toughest one for me, partly because the acting is just so over the top. It's just very, very, very broad. It does a lot of sort of boomerang turns between tone of like really goofy and then really gross and then really silly and then a child is dead. So that just, it was, and there's so much, like for the first almost like 2 hours of this movie, it just sort of seems to be like this system of random occurrences. All focusing on the same people, but just things just keep happening. And then someone's like, I hope you get scorched by lightning. And then they're hit by lightning. Like I couldn't get my hands around it. By the end, I understood it more. But this one was not making a joke. This one felt more like a walk in the woods than the other ones, which I immediately, and maybe it took The Wailing to get me on that same level as the other ones. But the other ones were much easier for me to immediately connect with. The Wailing, I was like, do they know that they're filming a movie right now? Because it's just so many insane little moments that are very effective, but maybe not all at once for me.
Well, and that's the thing with South Korean films is like they really have this boomerang between like some really silly comedy stuff and then over to much more serious stuff. Like Bong Joon-ho, I love his films, but I have much harder time when he goes really silly because it gets crazy. But if you watch his film Memories of Murder, it's like this, where you've got kind of these screwball antic cops and then this really serious murder story. And so that's just something that like I've gotten used to it now. And I can, if there's less of it with a serious story, I can pretty much handle it now. Like Memories of Murder, The Wailing. But if it's just a lot of it, it's just a little too much for me.
Yeah, when I screened Bong Joon-ho's The Host, I screened it in my international comedy class, and I remember it being funny, but there were parts of it that watching it at home, I did not realize were funny, including a little girl's funeral, that when you watch it with an audience, like it is so over the top that it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So all it is the family mourning a little girl. And it is honestly, when you're watching in the right context, the funniest thing I've ever seen. But yeah, this the comedy here reminded me of maybe if we see more movies from this director or something, like I could see people comparing it to say Martin McDonagh or even the Coen brothers or something, right? Just when we're there, we're like, oh, okay, I'm expecting it. But here, I wasn't expecting it. So similarly with Tommy, I was like, what is this? And it takes me out half the movie. Oh, okay, this isn't that odd, I suppose. As long as we know it.
But if you're able to go in with it knowing that it's going to be heightened.
Right.
Like a Barton Fink kind of world instead of like a real world, you'd be like, I'm on its wavelength.
Oh, okay.
That's a great way of saying it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I didn't realize that I was going to a different world for the first hour and a half of this movie.
Yeah, me too, Tommy. Yeah, absolutely.
I one of the things that struck me, and I think this is pretty consistent on particularly South Korean movies, is they do treat law enforcement with a certain degree of buffoonery fairly consistently.
Really?
And if you're, if you know that and have seen some of the movies where all the cops are meatheads, and sometimes there'll be standouts, and they're really great, but also kind of meatheads too. Like that starts to make more sense.
Mm.
I really appreciated it because I think he just gives off such a tone of like workaday normalcy. Like he's fighting demons and eventually trying to exorcise a demon in his own child, but he still just kind of wolfs down soup without looking at his family, and he never chews before he swallows and puts the next bite in his mouth. There's just that sort of vibe to it, and I think I appreciated that. In fact, I don't think I have any axes to grind, and maybe they are softened because what I would have, because the little girl is such a standout performance. I adored what she did in this movie. She is just like so precocious, preternaturally dominating this film, and it just made it so much easier to take any of the goofiness when we kept coming back to her and watching just real skill.
She was so good. Yeah. Very powerful performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a film that definitely walks the line between some crazy antics, but then some really dark, crazy stuff, as we start really kind of exploring like what's going on with the Japanese guy. And like when they can go confront him a few times, and we have them, tearing his place apart, and like it's really wild. And then when you finally get to that place where the Japanese man is in the cave, and it's like the big reveal of like what's been going on, it's like, I don't know, would you ever have been able to figure it out? It's fascinating the way it kind of is constantly playing with you. And I think that's one of the interesting things about this film, because it's kind of exploring this idea that belief is, you can use belief as a source of protection, which is what they do with all these different religions and everything, but also belief can be a path to destruction. And I think it's so fascinating because it's like you have to have faith, and if you have faith, it still can be wrong. And we see that over and over through these films.
Yeah, belief in itself was the unreliable narrator in this movie, right? It asks you to trust in the face of rampant xenophobia, this poor Japanese guy. And yet it turns out this folk xenophobia was right all along. The Japanese guy's the devil, right? Like that's the thing that gives you that sense of dissociative, mistrust. And it's what makes it so scary. This stuff is foreign even to the people for whom it should be native, right? It's foreign for everybody. We're just a degree removed.
Yeah.
That's the part that I wish I had a little bit more understanding of, is our audience surrogates, excuse me, the family members in each movie. How strange is this? Like in the Wailing, when the shaman who wants 10K to dancercize the demon out of the girl, it's unclear because they're like clapping along. Once you start screaming, it's clear that they're very uncomfortable. What I didn't know is like, what would the equivalent of that be to me?
Yes,
because they're so many of these religious rituals, if you want to call them religious, are so active, loud. They involve fire, whereas some of ours have like, eat this Ritz cracker and pretend that it's a guy. Like ours are so much more sedate in comparison. So that's what I didn't know, is like, how mind bending is this to them at times?
Yeah.
And I got that very much from Impetigore. My apologies if I'm getting it wrong, because they start in the big city.
Right.
That's weirdly grounding for me, because then I can follow along the journey.
Yeah, and I think we just have to assume that, because they're getting to a point where they're panicking and thinking this is wrong, that it probably is too much even for them. Like, it's I think that's where we land with this thing. And when we get to the medium, we'll talk about I think that the interesting thing that we end up seeing in that one is that the deity, the demon, whatever it is actually still working to manipulate people while it's going on. And it's not even the people are stopping it because they think, no, this is wrong, this is bad, we're doing something wrong. It's just because the wrong people are in the wrong place, and they're able to get to them,
Right. And then looking at the Wailing from, I'm not a person of faith, but from a Christian context, or just living again in America, right? I'm wondering, am I overreading some of the Christian imagery here? There's a lot of it. As Tommy says, it opens up with the quote about the resurrection, and but like our devil guy has stigmata at the end. It turns out he's got the holes in his hands, and then so many of these movies are about. It's not telling you what to think like an American movie tends to tell you, hey, this is what's going to happen. Then it shows you what's happened. Then it tells you, okay, now think about that. But a lot of these are like, oh, you don't really know what's going on. And then we recontextualize it. So I was like, okay, so this devil is Jesus he's so he's the devil and he's Christ. So he is like, is he a symbol of Christianity, the modern Christianity? And because we have a little bit of that of our police officer, the sidekick, who pretends to be more Christian. He wears a cross all of a sudden when he brings his nephew, who's a priest, around, and their main character kind of makes fun of him for it. But then we think even further, like then our Japanese devil guy, the first thing we see him doing is hooking a worm. Right. And I don't know, becoming a fisher of men, like
teaching a man to fish.
Yeah. So is he an evil Christ? Is that what's going on here? And maybe
is he baiting
Korea,
or is he baiting a trap?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like,
right.
is it saying that Christianity is this trap for people? Because I mean, there's so many Christians in South Korea, but like, if we other people argue, it's a colonialist idea, right? That we have basically a Middle Eastern or, European religion that's been exported there, So is this an anti-Christian movie? Which,
I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that this is less of an anti-Christian movie than an anti or at least a questionable religious movie, because this, like, the religious syncretism in here is legit. The fact that the devil himself at the end is an amalgamation of imagery from Christianity, from Korean folk beliefs, and Buddhism, and all of those things are challenged by this one creature. So what does that say? Either they're all right, or he's laid a trap all along for all the belief systems, right? Like, I think to me, that's one of the central questions of the movie. Like, how do you know which team to be on when the opponent is all other teams?
Yeah, right. And
that is
hard. Yeah, it's hard to know who to trust. I mean, and we see that with Jong-gu as he kind of keeps shifting his beliefs as far as like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do that now because that seems like it might be a better idea. And we get that as we come to the end, and we have the kind of the ghostly woman there who's telling him, basically he's finding out, like, you made the wrong choices, and now we're at a point where you have one last right choice to make, and you have to wait. You just have to wait until the third crow of the rooster before you do anything. Otherwise, everything is lost. And he just can't. Again, he hits this point where he's just like, I don't know if I should believe you. I was told not to believe you. You're telling me not to believe him. Now he's telling me not to believe you. Who should I believe? He finally it really kind of falls to just on himself and his preservation of family, and it's the wrong choice.
Yeah, it's a real Lady and the Tiger.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a really foreign concept to be thinking that, like, our main character at the action climax of the movie, the right thing to do is to do nothing. Like, that is so anti, what we would think of in the West as any screenwriting teacher would be like, you're saying he has to just not do anything? That's his whole thing? That's crazy.
But also that's really interesting because that is such a hard thing to do, right? It's a hard thing to just say, okay, I will just sit here and not do anything. That
is a horrifying parallel action, like cross-cutting between those two, because I really, even that late in the movie, I'm not sure which side is the right side. So that woman the woman in white is so convincingly evil, but she's not, and clearly, like, we're also afraid of the other guy, and so, like, legitimately wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. And I can't really remember a movie recently where I've been in those shoes. I've been like, I actually don't know what you want me to what you want me to want for this guy right now. Should he be going home and trusting the Japanese man or trusting the Korean woman? I don't know.
One of that's a really great point, because it reminds me that one of the central tools of these kinds of movies is the exorcism, right? We're going to use the exorcism as a solution. And in this movie, in these movies, the exorcism is just a tool to perpetuate confusion. And by the end, you don't know whether the real horror, the thing that is scary, is ultimately demonic, or is it just our own ignorance for not being able to read the signals and act on, the best clues, not just the next clue or the thing that we're most impatient about. I think that's fascinating.
Well, that's what I think is most frightening about it, because it's full of like rituals and symbols and all these forces that are all so big, and it's like, who really knows what all of that means?
Right.
And that's why we have these systems of faith in the first place, and we believe in these particular things, because it generally seems like if you believe in this particular thing with these other things, then everything kind of works out. But then you hit these points like this where suddenly things aren't working, and it ends up just truly, truly horrifying.
It really is. The Wailing especially, and I think partly because of its just length, its girth as a movie, is just full of these kinds of symbolic rug pulls. Just when they get me on team symbol that I feel like I can trust, they absolutely pull the rug and give me Haunted Girl.
Yeah, right. We're off to Indonesia with Impetigore, where the only thing scarier than a cursed village is realizing that it's your family's fault. Maya learns she has inherited a house in her ancestral Indonesian village, but her hopes for fortune turn to horror when she discovers the village is cursed. The villagers believe her family bloodline is the key to ending their suffering. Impetigore examines how Indonesia's cultural traditions and belief systems can serve both as identity and as a source of terror. This is such a fascinating film. And it has it's one of my favorite horror starts. Like, it is an incredible start to the film. We can talk about that in a minute, but first, let's. I want to say, air my grievances, but I know that's not it. What is Axis to Grind?
Axis to Grind.
Yes, they're Axis to Grind.
It's a horror movie podcast, Andy.
I don't know what it is about me, but being skinned alive.
We all have some ideas, Kynan.
But I would say being skinned alive is a very unpleasant idea. So that's my main axe here. I had to cringe a little too much more than I.
Please see above, Kynan.
Like.
It's a horror movie podcast.
Oh, I don't know what I said. I've been on it for a year and a half, and I still haven't figured it out.
No, it's an upsetting movie filled with a lot of upsetting parts, but that's the name of the game. So I don't personally have any axes to grind. I like the style of it. I thought the acting was much more my speed. And there's some interesting film making too. There's a lot of with the camera. There's some interesting playing around with POV. It's like the camera is constantly aware of creepy possibilities before our actors are, and then just sort of scans around. It's almost like we're haunting the movie at times, or we're being haunted also, which I always think is an interesting way to do it when it's so supposed to be from the one person, that it's her relationship with it, but there's so much more going on. I like this movie.
Right.
Yeah, I did too. I feel like the questions this movie asks, right? And all of these movies to some degree are about legacy, and this one, just horror as inheritance is awful. Like this is like, at what point do you poison the well of tradition? And this whole village has become cradle and tomb, and I think that is a really interesting mix. I also I'll jump right to the beginning, Andy. I think you're absolutely right, especially because I watched this back to back with The Wailing, and to come from that to such an incredible modern horror start was fantastic.
In the parking booth,
Yes,
Ending with that line that he has that she's like, what? Like, that just sets the whole thing up so well. Well, Axis to Grind, I do have one. I do find that it gets a little expository as
Mhm.
things are getting explained toward the end, as we're getting
Well,
lots
that
of like dream
flashback
flashbacks.
is
Yeah.
crazy long. I think that's
Yeah.
still going on in my. I ran out of time on Apple TV. That is like, because I really liked how it was filmed. I liked how it was done. I liked the revelations, but
Yeah.
it almost felt a little like cheating. Of like, well, you can't just write an entire other movie and keep it from us, and then have a dust girl stick her head in someone else's head, and now we get to see all of this. I mean,
Mhm.
it felt a little, a little
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Well,
there's a little of that in all of them, and a little bit of that, and I think in a lot of just Asian movies, how they don't seem to have the same rules as us about like, okay, we're 75% of here's a new character, which we have
Yes.
in the Medium and we have in the Wailing, and they seem to not be playing by the same rules as us in that case, like just
And
like,
this
hey,
huge amount of re-explaining, like in
yeah,
Ringu or The Ring.
yeah, exactly.
Samara shows up and you touch someone and they become dust, and then you just get the entire rest of the movie you were not allowed to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there are Mizoguchi movies in Japan, which is where I'm most familiar with in Asian cinema, where they change genres halfway through the movie, and they're just like, "Hey, deal with it. What are you gonna do? Like
Yeah, right.
time is an illusion, you Westerners." Like, but yeah, for this one with the exhibition, I was okay with it because of how stylish and cool it was. And in the
Yeah.
Wailing and the Medium, I was with Tommy. I was a little bit more like, why are we doing this now? But yeah, I like the look of the flashback, even though it is long. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they are long.
The flashbacks, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a really interesting story. We've already talked about like we're setting up like this story of these women with this girl in the city and her friend who, she finds out that there's this family that she kind of didn't know she had back that had been in this village and had this nice property, and apparently it can be hers if she goes and claims it. And so she goes off to this little village. And so we're getting this interesting look at the city versus the country essentially, but also kind of the non or atheist or agnostic. I'm not really sure where she's coming from, but like these people who have very specific beliefs. But then also what I find so interesting in this one is we're also getting another layer within the village itself of the regular villagers, I'll just call them, but then also we'll just say some of the old timers, and those are the ones who like speak Java, like they still speak this older language. Like we have the I'm forgetting the woman that kind of ends up befriending her, whose husband she ran into at the beginning. She her mom speaks Javanese and is one of the people who kind of talked to her about like the things that were going on and helping her kind of understand. But also you get this sense that she is the one who's kind of helped her own daughter kind of come to terms with what's happening. And to a point where she's like, I understand that, this might be your fault, but I'm not going to kill you. Like, I have no reason to do this like everyone else that wants to. And I find that is such an interesting element. Like through that method is really kind of this thing where you can't just get rid of a curse. It's not something that can be cured with something. All that happens is it changes. And that's exactly what we end up seeing in this film a number of times, as it initially starts because of this affair that had happened and led to an illegitimate child. And that led to, some brutal murders that now needed to be covered up. And with the skin puppets and all sorts of craziness. and then it leads to this final resolution that Maya has at the end of the film. But then as we learned from the old woman, you can't get rid of the curse. It just changes. And that's what we see at the very end with that little denouement, where is it kind of a surprise that suddenly it's like, oh, you didn't get rid of it. Now we've got a baby eater.
And yeah, I love all of that point. So much so that I was about to say it again. As I have done too many times on this podcast, and I apologize. But I do love the idea that what the wife of the guy that we meet in the beginning, she is representing is a denial of ritual, a denial of belief. She's saying that it stops here. We're not going to perpetuate this. In a way that, like, even because we keep bouncing back and forth between, like, for instance, Christianity, if you believe in Christianity, we're all cursed. We're born cursed. We're born damned because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. And you could be the worst person in the world, and if you repent at the very last second, then you get to go to heaven. That's ending a curse. That's ending something in a not necessarily just way, just because you believe, but instead of just saying, we're all in this together and there's no getting out of it. I also thought, which I think is very interesting, I also think this is the most I want to say James Carpenter, that can't be right, John Carpenter of these movies, Jonathan Carpenter, because it's really so much about the children paying for the sins of the adults.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what all of his movies are about. And so the idea of a curse just also being your lineage is
Right.
Yeah.
In the Wailing, we get our main character who's told, well, this all happened because you sinned, but he asks, like, please tell me what it was so I could fix it. And they're like, no, there's no fixing it.
Right.
And so here, like, we're living with this generationally, and she gets to go and fix it by understanding where she comes from. And so, the happiest ending of the three movies that we have, but still kind of ultimately unsatisfying in some ways, right? She goes from living in Jakarta and living in this modern life. She seems to have some distance from Islam, right? She's like looking at these women who just live a different life than her and her friend, and is like, that's not for me. And we're also struggling to become businesswomen, right, in the modern world. Let's go back and let's fix all of that by going back there. And she finds, well, that's not the solution either. So to live as a miniature queen in this little village, where I have the biggest house, like, that's also not it either, right? Because she's sort of in between. So I don't know, because we don't have something at the end where she's like, now I believe in the folk religion because I've done it. She does the ritual, if you will, by putting it back there, but she doesn't seem to. There's not another scene, like maybe in an American movie where she's now a practitioner. She seems to disappear into the night. Yeah.
I got a real Texas Chainsaw Massacre ending for her of going, like, I believe that she is broken. Like the idea of now she is emotionally cursed for the rest of her life. Like she's losing her mind, just like that girl, driving off in the, well, what's his name has the chainsaw. So I think everybody still ends up cursed.
Right.
Well, it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if, I mean, technically she could still sell the house and make some money from it, but it makes you wonder if she's just going to write off that entire village and not even think about it and just go back to whatever it was she's going to be doing, because it was just too much to even return to just for something so simple.
It's sort of the corollary story to Florence Pugh's journey in Midsommar at the end, right? Like what does that smile mean?
Right. She's smiling and she is insane.
And insane. Yeah.
That's in the script. That's right.
This film really deals with the idea of this collective belief that we're getting here, where these villagers have kind of been sold a bill of goods. I mean, you have what's the mother, the old cranky mom's name? Misni. Misni is Saptadi's Saptadi's mother, who is the kind of the most brutal of all of them. And it also seems like she is. I don't think, like, I don't know what I can call her. She doesn't seem shamanic. She doesn't seem like she's a witch, but she's certainly doing ritualistic types of things. I think that she definitely has some of that in her. And everybody is kind of latched onto this thing that she clearly has told them that only her son can help the village, he's now leading the village, and they all buy it. As you said, Tommy, that great line about, like, well, what else are we meant to believe?
Do we have to look up? If you're trapped in a cult in the middle of the forest, what else do you have?
Exactly. They have no other way of getting through this. And so everyone in this village is cursed with having, when they have a baby, it's born without any skin, which is absolutely horrific. Just awful, awful stuff. But I think that's what's so interesting, because they buy into the fact that, okay, well, sure. What else do we have? This is a horrible thing that's happening to us. We're going to have to do horrible things to whoever it is that we find. I don't know how many people they've done this to before they get to Maya and her friend, but like, it's just horrific. And they are all going along with it. They're like, yeah, we'll hit him over the head, string him up in a tree, and Misni can come over and drain their blood and pull off their skin to make puppets out of them. Like, oof.
There is because I accidentally used the word cult, but now I'm glad I used the word cult. There is a difference between potentially if this movie was made in the Western world, no one's profiting.
No.
Like everyone's just trying to get by. Usually with cults, there is a reason to get everyone on the same page and do all your horribleness because you're getting rich or you're having 19 wives or anything. Everyone is just suffering and horrible. But they're just doing it because it's such blind faith. Again, that's all that they have. But that's a very interesting way because it is a cult. It has to be. But
right,
no
they
one
made
is.
their own version of their religion, right? And this doesn't happen everywhere in this part of Java. It is this specific, culture that they've branched off, right? And Misni has become the closest thing you can, apparently, right, to like a woman leader here by being the grandmotherly figure, elder, right? Who's the woman behind the man. Who, he's all about talk and like, let's do these things and let's put on the shows. Let's action. Like, let's do this, right? That really horrifying scene where, they're talking to the friend and being like, hey, we have to explain this or whatever. And she's like, just do it. like we have babies are being born. Like we're losing time. Just do it. And she comes in and it does that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's so interesting, especially sort of comparing it to the village experience of the Wailing, where you have the village's mistrust, and here you have a village whose tradition, founded on a curse, is decaying over time, and it causes not just the people to make decayed decisions, but the buildings, the facilities, to decay all around them. And I think that's really interesting. What happens when our ambiguity of faith that we had in the Wailing is expressed here in terms of failed rituals that have just sort of backfired.
Because when we go back in the flash forward, they're doing a lot better.
They're doing a lot better.
Exactly. They're having parties and stuff. There's a lady eating babies, but otherwise it seems like a much hipper place to hang out.
Right, but she'll become a tourist attraction eventually. It'll become CR, our local baby eater. Yeah,
right. At what cost? I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's something interesting about kind of the question that Maya, the lead character, is asking Rati, like get out of here, is kind of the implication of part of what she's doing, and it seems like to these people, like they are their village, right? It's not like just move like Maya's people. Maya doesn't know where she's from, but modern Jakartan people would be like, just get out of there and go to Jakarta. Like that's where life is, right? But these people, they're not even sure if like, hey, if we leave the geographical bounds of the village, will this go away? No one's tried that even, right? No one's been like, let's do that, because
other than her husband.
Right. Yeah. But like, will our babies survive out there? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we are this little village here. Like that is our identity and our geography.
Which is so interesting because, her husband is the one who has gone out seeking the source of their problems, right? As we see at the very beginning of the film. That's why he has a mission. But nobody else has done that. How long has this been going on and nobody has been trying to find Maya? Like, it's crazy. Like, have other people come through the village and they've just killed them in the hopes that it might be this person? Like, exactly what's going on? It really... have they just been sitting there for like 20 years still trying to have babies, and every single time it's just skinless? Like, what are these people doing? But they're just so lost in the sense that they just don't understand anything outside of their own little world, that they don't have anything outside of their own little world.
It reminds me a lot. There's a lot of parallels to if you've seen the movie of Silent Hill based on the video game, I actually think it's a very strong, especially visually, it is a stunning movie. But it is a town lost, like outside of the world, that has just been corrupted by their own intractability, their own unwillingness to believe in sins that they've done, and they're just rotting away, stuck in time, until an outsider comes and sort of shows them life is moving on. There's a world outside of this horribleness. Try to turn on one light. One switch.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it's a fascinating film. I find in these cases, like watching them multiple times, you end up just getting more and more out of them. They're definitely fascinating things. Let's transition to our last film here, The Medium. In The Medium, Thailand shows us that belief isn't just spiritual, it's personal, generational, and absolutely horrifying. In rural Thailand, a documentary crew follows Nim, a shaman serving the goddess Bayan. When Nim's niece Mink begins exhibiting violent, erratic behavior, the situation spirals into a battle between divine and evil forces. The Medium reflects Thailand's blending of animism, Buddhism, and family legacy in its exploration of belief and its consequences. This is, the really unique thing that really sets this one apart is it's done as kind of a mockumentary that I found. At first, I was kind of like, interesting. I don't know if it needed to be done this way, but then I'm like, it actually kind of helps me buy into the reality of these rituals and everything. And along with Axes to Grind, I guess we should do that first, and then we can talk more about the documentary style. Sorry.
Well, my Axe to Grind is the documentary style, and it's
okay.
like, with any found footage or dramatic mockumentary, like, it has to work 100% of the time, because if there's any chinks in the armor, there, it's like, oh gosh, I'm seeing it, it's breaking the spell. And with this one, the spell is so good when it works, especially in those beginning times when we're seeing a woman who we've never seen before, right? She's not a movie star, and it just looks like a real person. Yeah, she looks like a real person. It's like, oh, this is actually happening. And then, like just about every found footage except for Blair Witch, I guess, right? then we have to like add plot stuff and like, oh gosh, that's disappointing. But those interview sequences, especially with her at the beginning and the end, are stunning.
It really bought a lot for me. I'm an enormous fan of found footage stuff. I did an entire episode about it a zillion years ago. But yeah, I thought when it was done, it's exactly right. When it was done right, it was done so well that it bought a lot of stuff for me. And it really, I want to do an entire Sitting in the Dark episode where it's just the scary thing is someone with their back to the camera. It's like ever since Blair Witch Project, this film is rife with back to the camera, and every time I'm like, the one X that I have is at the not the last shot. The last shot is Nim's final interview, but
right.
I have a guess on what Yasantia is, but where did we see that word before? It's written on the doll that is like a fetish doll that has all these things. So it was obviously like a voodoo doll, or my apologies, the equivalent of that. Is it the name for the father or something? I mean, I just didn't know what that name was, what that word was.
I don't know.
I thought you were going to solve. I thought you were going to solve it for us, Tavio.
No, because
the
movie treats it like a real big reveal at the end. It's got to be involved with her family,
right?
But I just don't remember ever seeing or hearing that name before.
I do think that it came up earlier in the film, but I can't remember the context. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look at it again to figure out where they mentioned that, but because I can't remember now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know what it must mean. It has to be about this curse for the family, but
yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Any other axes, Pete?
Yeah. I actually, when the movie started, I thought this is going to be my axe. I don't. This mockumentary thing is going to be. I'm going to complain about that. I'm gonna hold it against Andy for making me watch this movie. It became quickly nullified because I got it. I do stand, I think, with Kynan that there are places during the height of the action that where you see the seams a little bit. You see like what is the camera doing right now? I don't.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how they're a part of it, how they're not a part of it. I think the movie tries to absolve some of those concerns by making the camera people direct victims, and that's effective. But for some of the heated sequences in the bulk of the movie, I noticed that I didn't feel as real. But you guys are so right about these actors. I was so lost in their humanness and their willingness to accept that familial possession and spiritual inheritance are just a thing that we navigate, right?
Mhm.
It's like any other trust. And kind of like the Wailing, turns out gods may be malicious, and we kind of have to navigate that too. And so I thought it was very effective overall.
Yes, that question again, which is new to me, Pete, about is this the way that you are possessed? Isn't even the right word for it, right? You're inhabiting, you're becoming the shaman for this deity. That's new to me as I'm watching this, and then it's like, oh, I actually care about how this is dealing with the in the family. Not the horror aspect of it, but just like, what would that mean, right? If my sister didn't want to be this, so I feel like I have to, like, we're used to, I didn't want to run daddy's business. So,
right. It's
you're right. So
yeah.
I was thinking you're much more elevated than me. I was thinking, so I went back, to my little small town and found a Christmas Prince there.
Oh, the Hallmark.
The Hallmark
standpoint?
thing.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, I put totems in your shoes and curse
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
and now
right.
that's my whole life, and you get to have a family, and now your family's, that's so fascinating. The sister dynamic here is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Well, and that's what I find so fascinating about this, because it really, I mean, again, all of these things are things that in some capacity as the audience, we also have to find belief in what we're seeing here.
Mhm.
And this is a story about this family lineage that is connected to this goddess Bayan, and their grandmother was kind of like serving as host for Bayan, and then their aunt was serving as host, and then Nai was essentially, set up to do it, as you were saying, but then no, she didn't want to do it. She wanted to do something different. So she converts to Christianity, plants all these things. So Bayan goes over, and Nam becomes kind of her host.
Or does she? Because at the
Well,
very
does
last
she?
scene,
And that's the thing.
again, everything is thrown to the wind.
Well,
Right.
that's what I find so
No, yeah.
fascinating, because is everything that we're seeing going on here in some way Bayan's revenge for the family? Are there any other evil spirits, or is all of this Bayan saying, like, your family is the one that I've chosen, or whatever it is, and you were meant to be my host. You rejected me, and I've been with Nim all this time, but not really. I actually haven't been. And now I want Mink, and I'm going to make everyone's lives hell. And I'm basically going to tear everything apart, and people are going to die because I want Mink. And that's how things should have been from the beginning. And you rejected me. And it just makes it like you have to start thinking about, like, who is actually doing all of this?
I took the sheer amount of footprints running towards
in the factory at the end,
at the factory, to be all of those families that they did wrong.
Yeah.
But whether that's Bayan allowing them, I mean, it's not like everyone just gets to have their just desserts, or just and so, but they would need some sort of a deity, one would think, to facilitate that. So everything you're saying is exactly right.
Yeah. But again, that recontextualization at the end, which is stunning, of her, Neem not sure that she was ever the host for this deity, and that maybe it doesn't exist, and maybe she was faking it. And what is the difference between dedicating your life to a religion and faking it? Like, really, what is that? And that we don't have any footage of Bayan the deity in the movie. We have footage of some other thing, so that, again, that's part of my axe to grind, is like, we're in this documentary, and like, we have physical proof that ghosts exist, but why is it in this little doc? Why haven't had Anderson Cooper explain this to me? Like, we have, like, why is it 45 minutes into this documentary? No, but like, we have footage, like real footage, that ghosts exist, but not that any of the good things that Neem has devoted her life to exist, right? Which is really terribly sad, and just stunning again. And again, talking about, like, we were talking about, like, Impetigore, and how a lot of these movies don't really have any problem as much as we do in the West, of like introducing major characters very late, or like protagonist transference. Like, Neem doesn't make it to the end, which is really, really surprising, in a way that that was like, oh wow, like, yes, of course that's what should happen. Like, she shouldn't be there for that.
But it allows that final return that she has in that last little bit to do so much recontextualizing of
Right.
everything that we had seen. That is such a fascinating way to, an element to include in the story. That she is unsure, and in a world of faith and belief, like you have this person in your community that everyone is looking to, getting advice from. What do I do? Because my husband drank this water from this dead serpent, and now he can't move half his body. And she's helping these people, right? And people are coming to her, and then for that reveal, like, I don't know if I ever actually had Bayan in me. It's a wild twist.
I think that was the observation I wanted to make, that I think is so interesting about all three of these movies, that they all show how the village people, the populace, believe in how faith should be their protector. And yet the evidence that we see in these movies, in all of them, is that their faith blinds or betrays them around every corner, right? What does that say about like cultural continuity, right? What message are we supposed to get from all three of these films, that they definitively sort of present a case that faith is not a thing that you can trust. Old faith, new faith, it's all somehow broken. It's not unreal, right? They're not making a particularly atheist perspective. They're saying you're a fool to believe because it can hurt you.
You're in danger of the leap.
Yes.
The leap of faith is from a very high place if you let it be.
And there's no little pool at the bottom often. Or that looks like a pool, but it's actually bricks. That's what's happening in these movies.
Like there's something with like these ancient traditions and beliefs from this older world, or older way of thinking. I don't necessarily want to contextualize it as that, but something that feels ancient. And then, I mean, these are modern stories. Every one of these is taking place present day, and it's this butting of heads of these two ideas that they have. These modern people having a hard time. Like, they might believe in this stuff, but do they actually know all of the realities of every little bit of these ancient stories? Like, it's fascinating and leaves it very ambiguous.
Right. And, in the case of the medium, again, they feel old. Buddhism and Christianity are very old, right? But these are these native religions, is how I want to say, like the animism that's like this tree has a spirit, and this stream has a spirit, right? That is also real, right? And but it won't save you, as Pete's saying. That's the reality of it. It's neither positive nor negative. It just is.
It exists, and it's not in compliance with your life. It does not notice you.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it does not care for you at all.
Right.
But thanks for all the candles.
And the dead bird and the soy sauce, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
God, does it just make you mistrust soy sauce? Like, where did this bottle come from?
It's like, what does that taste? A little more umami in this one than I'm used to.
That's what umami is. It's bird.
Oh my God. Well, I suppose to kind of close this conversation up, I just think that there's an interesting question that they're all asking, and perhaps because we're in the realm of horror, like the question of, are these cautionary tales about belief, or are they suggesting that faith, despite dangers within them, can still be a source of strength? I feel like because it's horror, it kind of leans to the former, But I find that powerful. And I think that's such an interesting thing to look at as we kind of look at these different countries and different ritualistic traditions within them.
Right. I think it was a fantastic set of movies, Andy. I think I never would have stumbled on them.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thrilled to have brought them to you. And I'll tell you, I mean, definitely on second watches, they hold up so well. They're really, and things just work better and better. So they're definitely worth checking out again. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you inviting me to be part of this and to discuss these films with you.
Well, thank you, Andy.
Absolute pleasure. What a great guest host.
Guest star, guest host, my shooting star. Uncle Andy. Sure appreciate you being here and bringing these movies to us. Everybody, the links to the movies are obviously in the show notes. Check those out. Amazon, Apple, or Just Watch. Follow us on Letterboxd. Do all the things you're supposed to do. And on behalf of Kynan Dias and Tommy Metz III and Andy Nelson, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next month right here, sitting in the dark.